I have a lot of respect and appreciation for what Lovie did this season. There's things defensively that we can certainly do better, but with the ability to take the ball away, we played better in the red area. As the year went on. So again, I think we're going to have to kind of take that one day at a time and kind of see where we end up on a coaching front. But I think Lovie is a good coach. I think he's done a lot for our program, and I think he's done a lot for our system, and our players have a lot of belief in it.
That was Texans general manager Nick Caserio just about 3 weeks ago when asked if Lovie Smith would return as defensive coordinator. Well, whatever respect he had for him then as DC must have been pretty good, because Lovie Smith, as of just about an hour ago, is now officially the new HC, as in head coach of the Houston Texans. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to the Fox 26 Sports Stream. I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. We got a lot to get to with the coaching carousel, at least this latest cycle, finally coming to an end. All 9 open spots appear to be filled, including your Houston Texans, who threw a curveball at the entire football world over the weekend as they decided to promote from within. And Lovie Smith, the associate head coach and defensive coordinator for the past season, obviously has been in the game forever as an assistant, and then more than a decade as a head coach in the NFL, and then 5 years at the University of Illinois. He is now the man who will succeed David Culley. So let's get into just what happened shortly after 6 o'clock as the Texans made it official, announcing they have agreed to terms and hired Lovie Smith as their head coach. They also announced they are promoting Pep Hamilton from quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator, and Frank Ross will remain on staff as the special teams coordinator. So that's what we have as far as an official word from the Texans. You just heard a second ago what general manager Nick Caserio had to say 3 weeks ago. Here's what he had to say tonight. In a statement released by the team, Caserio says, "I am excited to introduce Lovie Smith as our next head coach. He is one of the most respected coaches in the NFL and an established leader, a proven winner. Lovie has shown the ability to develop players both on and off the field for years. We had numerous discussions with countless coaches, executives, and players, and what revealed itself is that Lovie has both the leadership and people skills to lead us forward. We both understand how much work is in front of us, but we embrace the responsibility and look forward to continuing to build a program that can have sustained success." So that's what Nick Caserio had to say. Here's the statement from Lovie Smith released tonight. "I want to first thank Nick Caserio and the MCNAIR family for giving me this opportunity. I'm humbled to be the next head coach of the Houston Texans and incredibly excited to continue to work with Nick. I have so many friends, family, teammates, and coaches to thank for supporting me and helping me continue to do what I love, which is teaching and developing players. I understand the responsibility I have to this organization and this city to develop a championship-level program. I'm ready to get to work and build it together." And then the last one from the team owner and CEO, Cal McNair, who acknowledged that it's been a rocky go-round if you're a fan of the Houston Texans. Here's Cal McNair's statement released by the team about an hour ago. "The last couple of seasons have been disappointing, but I believe in the vision Nick Caserio has for our football team moving forward, and I see the pieces coming together. Our goal here is to create an environment that is conducive to winning on a day-to-day basis and compete for championships. I've had an extreme amount of respect for Lovie for years now, and that only grew with the work he did last season and throughout this process. I'm excited for him and his family as we continue to evolve as an organization." All right, so on paper, everything looks good. And if you're a Texans fan, maybe it's not as flashy as bringing back a name like DeMeco Ryans or hiring somebody who is coaching in the Super Bowl or has won a Super Bowl like an Eric Bieniemy for the Chiefs. But at least you got a guy who has sat in the big chair before, has been to the Super Bowl himself as a head coach, was NFL Coach of the Year, though it was way back in 2005. As you take a look at the Lovie Smith resume, it stands up as well as any coach out there who's been available, not just this season or last. The guy has experience. He's had success. Players love him, well respected around the league. So where you ultimately get to, you could do worse. And that's where, if you're a Texans fan, the last not just 24 hours or 72 hours, but really the last few years just make you continue to scratch your head and go, what exactly is the goal here? What ultimately are we playing at in terms of trying to run this ship and rebuild whatever they are trying to build down there on Kirby Drive? And that is, you could have had Lovie Smith as your head coach a year ago. What did you not know about him then that you all of a sudden know about him now? This isn't some unknown, some hot young assistant who comes out of nowhere. This isn't the Patriots having to throw their backup quarterback into action after Drew Bledsoe goes down, and then everybody all of a sudden is like, oh, wait, the kid's actually not that bad, and then you get Tom Brady. Lovie Smith is a proven commodity. Everybody knows Lovie Smith. He was available to be your head coach before, and then it took you 3 weeks to come around to the idea that Lovie Smith is who we want to be the head coach. What has changed since then? Obviously, if you read between the leaves, or if you read between the lines, if you are reading the tea leaves, you can say, all right, well, who are the people that we know the Texans had interviewed and who are the people we know they had liked? Now, the team themselves had been announcing whenever they had interviewed a candidate, including when they interviewed a candidate on more than one occasion. So it's not like Lovie Smith was somebody who maybe now they're say, oh, well, yeah, we've always been talking to him the entire time. Why wouldn't you announce, just as you did when you brought in a Brian Flores or a Josh McCown, a Jonathan Gannon from the Philadelphia Eagles, Kevin O'Connell from the Rams? You announced every single one of those meetings and confirmed, yes, we had a meeting, we had an interview with this individual, we had a second interview with some of these people, and it wasn't until things started to trickle out last night that Lovie Smith was being considered for the head coaching job, and then the Texans acknowledged this morning, yes, we've had further discussions with Lovie Smith, and here we are tonight, Lovie Smith is the coach. What obviously has changed? Well, if you're to believe all the reports out there, and there's been enough chatter around the league, there's not many things that stay hidden or secret for too long. The Texans were enamored with Josh McCown for one reason or another. They interviewed him not once, not twice, but 3 times in a calendar year. Twice this go round, and they interviewed him last year after the firing of Bill O'Brien. Before they settled on David Culley, they interviewed Josh McCown. And obviously what has changed since that first interview with Josh McCown, even that second interview with Josh McCown, this hiring cycle, obviously the Brian Flores lawsuit, alleging that there's racism in the hiring practices of the NFL, and he sued the entire league and then 3 teams specifically and listed a number of grievances, not just to him, but also pointed out a number of things around the league that are cause for concern with the way that race plays a factor, or too often does not play a factor, in the hiring of head coaches and general managers. And one thing that Brian Flores in his lawsuit specifically cited was the treatment of David Culley by the Texans, to hire him and then fire him after only 1 year, despite a roster that was rebuilding, that had so many question marks, so many young guys, so many guys on short-term contracts. Let's be honest, not a lot of guys who are thought of around the league as top-end talent, and then all the questions at the quarterback position. And then the Texans end up being a franchise that fires one of the only 2 black coaches in the NFL. So perhaps when the Texans see their name and their organization listed in that lawsuit, and though they were not one of the teams that was explicitly sued by Brian Flores, he sued the Dolphins, Broncos, and the Giants in addition to the entire NFL. Perhaps that's what gave them pause to say, we can't hire Brian Flores. We don't feel comfortable hiring Brian Flores, but they understood that hiring a Josh McCown, who has 0 years of coaching experience at the college or NFL level, and we're not just talking about being a head coach or a coordinator. We went over this several times that Josh McCown's resume coming into this cycle was he played in the NFL for a long time. And so he's obviously seen a lot of offenses, knows a lot of offenses, very, very briefly served as an ESPN analyst. And then he was a volunteer assistant coach at the high school level, helping to coach his son's teams for a few seasons here or there. But to all of a sudden just take a guy who not since Norm Van Brocklin during the JFK administration had a player gone straight from playing to being a head coach, there's a reason that that hasn't happened in so long. And so the Texans perhaps finally understood you cannot hire a Josh McCown, let alone when Brian Flores was a finalist for your job, somebody with whom you have experience, given the fact that Nick Caserio and Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Jack Easterby, worked with Brian Flores for years and years when they were all at the New England Patriots, to pass him over despite the fact that he's been a head coach, been a longtime assistant, and oh, by the way, each of the last 2 years he had a winning season despite a myriad of problems with his roster and at the quarterback position, and Brian Flores was still able to win games. Perhaps common sense finally came to the Texans, but they elect not to hire Brian Flores. They decide that they are going to avert the Josh McCown situation, and instead they go with an established veteran coach in Lovie Smith. So ultimately, if you're a Texans fan, you're breathing a sigh of relief that you have somebody who's qualified for the position and somebody who has experience coaching before. But at the same time, the way you got here is going to have to make you continue to go, what is going on? Who's actually running things down there? And you have to think that that seat has gotten just a little bit hotter on Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby, that they've now gone through 2 head coaching searches, and ultimately this is where they landed. And in the first instance, they were the ones who decided it didn't work out with David Culley. But if they're doing this all again after just another year or two, you have to wonder, are you really going to give your front office a chance at hiring a third different head coach? So none of this is to say anything bad or look down upon Lovie Smith as an individual, because again, he's qualified, he's put in the work, he's had the success on the field before, that maybe this is the time that it does all click for him. Again, a lot of people believe that when he was let go from his last NFL gig with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after only 2 seasons, that they did not give him a fair shake. Remember, he took over after the Greg Schiano debacle in Tampa Bay, a rebuilding project. They end up with the number 1 pick, take Jameis Winston, and despite some gradual improvements, they canned Lovie Smith after only 2 years and did not give him a chance to continue to grow and develop with Jameis Winston. And who knows what might have happened. Again, he was in Chicago for almost a decade, took the Bears to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as his quarterback, no less. So this is a guy who has proven he can get things done. And if you're a Texans fan, yeah, it doesn't have the same splash as, say, an Eric Bieniemy or a DeMeco Ryans, but at the same time, you got to be able to sleep a lot better knowing you at least have a coach who's coached before, as opposed to Josh McCown. Now, earlier tonight, our sports director, Mark Berman, was able to speak with one of Lovie Smith's players, and that is safety Justin Reed, who obviously played for Lovie this past year. Reed will be a free agent coming up in just a few weeks in March, when the calendar officially flips over in terms of free agency. But he's been a Texan his entire career, and he had nothing but good things to say about the Texans news and about Lovie Smith being promoted to the head coach.
Oh, man, I'm so happy for him. Extremely qualified. He's a guy that everybody in the locker room wants to play for. Really brings the best out of his players. And in 1 year, he already changed the defense from where we were the previous year to how we played this past season. So no doubt he'd be able to have that impact on the entire team through his leadership and his guidance. He's down to earth. He really knows football, but not only that, he's also extremely personable. He knows how to coach to the guy that he's coached to, knows how to coach him to use his or his best talents and allow his best talents to be displayed on the field. So a lot of what he preaches is simple. Take care of your responsibility, and at that point, whatever your talent is, use it to be your strength to go out and make some plays.
Now, we also asked Justin Reid about the fact that Lovie Smith is a black head coach, and there were only 2 of the 9 openings. 2 of them were filled by black men, and so that now gives the NFL 3 black coaches among its 32 teams. And when you consider the fact that more than 70% of the players in the league are black, the NFL still has a ways to go in terms of how it addresses diversity and inclusion. And that's something that the commissioner, Roger Goodell, even pointed out as a memo was sent out to the league over the weekend, in which the commissioner acknowledged that the NFL has to do something to improve its hiring practices and how they're able to get more diverse backgrounds in their head coaching and general manager positions. So we asked Justin Reid about the fact that Lovie Smith is a black man who is taking over as head coach and how he views that component to this latest hire.
When it comes to coaching, it didn't matter what color Coach Lovie was. He is an amazing coach, bar none. But also to the fact that he is African American, I think that that's major too, just because the opportunities aren't there like they should be all the time. And he's definitely someone who's qualified, who's had the position before, and has proven that he can win.
And we will have much more on the hiring of Lovie Smith coming up on Fox 26 News at 9. We'll also hear from another one of Lovie Smith's players, and it's a name Texans fans will recognize. Former first-round draft pick Amobi Okoye, who after his tenure with the Texans played under Lovie Smith in Chicago for a couple seasons. He, like Justin Reid, had nothing but good things to say about Lovie. So we will have that coming up for you on Fox 26 News at 9. We again want to point out that at least 2 of the coaching staff positions we know are intact. Pep Hamilton is staying on the staff. He's been promoted to offensive coordinator, and especially when you see the progress that Davis Mills made over the final month of the season as a rookie and a 3rd-round rookie draft pick, and one who was playing behind an offensive line that was seemingly changing game in and game out, did not have a run game behind him that he could depend on, and didn't really have a lot of playmakers around him that he could go out there and ply his wares with, and yet he was still able to show steady improvement and growth, and really had a good final month of the season statistically. And so there's at least some continuity in keeping Pep Hamilton, who again was well regarded throughout the league. There were multiple teams that wanted to interview Pep Hamilton for their job as offensive coordinator. And even going back to his days under David Shaw at Stanford, he's a guy who people have talked about as being a very keen offensive mind and somebody who could possibly be a head coach in his own right at some point. He was actually an XFL head coach before COVID hit and shut down that league. So good news on that front if you're a Texans fan, that you get to keep Pep Hamilton in the fold, and then Frank Ross staying on as special teams coordinator. So as we learn more about the coaching staff and how that'll all shake out, we will certainly pass that along to you. The Texans have called a news conference for Tuesday morning at NRG, where Lovie Smith will be available in conceivably with other members of the Texans brass. And so we might start to get some more questions answered as far as what does the rest of the staff look like, and hopefully Cal McNair and Nick Caserio are there and can try to walk everybody through the process that looked completely bungled and like a dumpster fire from the outside to what the ultimate goal ended up being finding a coach, and you found a good coach in that, and you were able to divert yourself from possible disaster with Josh McCown. And look, maybe Josh McCown at some point becomes the next great coach and the next wonderkind, and maybe we do see an NFL team at some point take a guy right from playing to making him the head coach. But again, there's not a lot that is kept secret in this league. It is a copycat league. There's a reason that nobody in modern football, nobody since the NFL AFL merger, has done that and taken a guy straight off the playing field and made him the head coach. And so the Texans have not earned the benefit of the doubt to think, why was it going to work in this case? And now if you're a Texans fan, you don't have to worry about that, because you have a qualified seasoned veteran who will be taking over. As to whether or not Lovie Smith is the long-term answer remains to be seen, because anybody you brought in, whether it was a Josh McCown or an Eric Bieniemy or even another established veteran coach, this is a franchise that still has so much work to do, filling out its roster, building depth, finding an identity. I guess in terms of, you'll finally have your draft picks, and if you do trade Deshaun Watson at some point, which people expect whenever his legal situation is resolved, you'll have even more high draft capital. So I guess in that regard, the franchise is in a better spot now than it was when we were doing all of this a year ago, and you were able to get some of the more expensive contracts off the books in one way or another. But right now, you're still, if you're a Texans fan, I guess you're breathing a sigh of relief that you have a coach who has coached before, but you have to still wonder, what is the overall big picture goal here? What does this rebuild look like? How long is it going to take? And what is the next step? So that's what we know as of right now. Again, we'll have more for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. And of course, as always, for all the updates on all things in the Houston sports scene, make sure you are following our sports director, Mark Berman. You can find him on Twitter. He is at Mark Berman, Fox 26. Just a couple other news and notes before we get out of here tonight. Big week coming up in the NBA, as Thursday is the NBA trade deadline. Eric Gordon's a name who's been thrown around all season long. He did not play last night against the Pelicans, and he is listed on the injury report for tomorrow night's game in New Orleans against the Pelicans. Head coach Steven Silas says Eric is dealing with plantar fasciitis. We will see just how that resolves itself. A lot of times when guys are being thrown about as possible trade scenarios, you want to make sure that they are 100% healthy and don't be running them out there, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So keep an eye on the trade deadline. Is Eric Gordon going to be a Rocket by this weekend? And is he the only member of the Houston Rockets who is still going to be here by the time the weekend rolls around? We will also find out, hopefully soon, if baseball is going to be played. We got a chance to talk to a few of the Astros players over the weekend who were at NRG Arena for the TriStar baseball card and sports memorabilia show. And right now the players say, we want to play. We're waiting for the union or the league to get the union back on its side and actually negotiate, and they want to play baseball. But as of right now, and typically around this time, you're thinking about pitchers and catchers reporting, that's not happening. So again, all the updates for you on our website at fox26houston.com. And if you follow Mark Berman at Mark Berman Fox 26. We do it every Monday just after 7 o'clock. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next week on the Fox 26 Sports Stream. For all of us here at Fox 26, I'm Sal Manine. Take care.